Russia applies a new strategy to the second phase of the military campaign. Russia's special military operation in Ukraine that began in February did not bring about a swift victory as Moscow had planned. Now, Moscow appears to be adjusting its strategy. The conflict between Kiev and Moscow has entered a new phase after Russia withdrew its troops from northern Ukraine, shifting its focus to the east of the country, where clashes have occurred between Ukrainian troops and separatists since 2014. According to experts, this new phase, which Moscow calls the second phase of special military operations, marks a major shift in Russia's military strategy in Ukraine. Russia has now appointed a new commander-in-chief for this second operation. Who is chosen for the position of commander of the military operation in Ukraine does not matter. The problem is that the Russian military currently seems to have only a single commander with the authority to coordinate an operational-level offensive operation, involving several branches of the field, said Edward Erickson, former Army officer, U.S., and a former professor of military history in the Department of War Studies at the U.S. Marine Corps College, said. This is bad news for Ukraine, because it means that Russia will concentrate all of its combat power, including troops, equipment, air force, on one or two offensive routes, instead of that. Because of the 6 to 9 attack routes as proposed earlier, Mr. Erickson told TRT World. He also pointed out that Russia is shifting its focus to eastern Ukraine with a more focused and forceful approach. Ioannis Koskinas, a former U.S. officer and senior fellow at the International Security Program of the New America think tank, USA, said that Russia is changing its military strategy after the first phase due to the way decentralized approach. This hurts the logistics of the world's second largest military. In terms of combat, at the very beginning, Russia conducted its military campaign in many directions, including stepping up the attack on Kiev. This poses the problem of expanding logistics routes for Russia, leaving the country's military forces vulnerable to attack, the expert said. Russia seems to have learned from those mistakes and is now using logistics lines inside Russia to redeploy troops and equipment to the eastern front of Ukraine, the military analyst said. Russia's advantage in eastern Ukraine. In terms of logistics routes, Moscow has more advantages in eastern Ukraine because it borders Russia, while Kiev or the west of the country borders NATO member countries like Poland. Russia has a short aid route from Moscow, while Ukraine has to transport materials from Europe and U.S. military equipment from the Polish border to eastern Ukraine. This is a big hindrance for Ukraine, Koskinas said. He also said that the Russian Air Force has better control over the airspace and freedom of operation in eastern Ukraine than in the western regions, because this area is close to NATO member countries and therefore may pose a danger. Confrontation between Moscow and the Western Alliance. According to Mr. Koskinas, the open terrain of eastern Ukraine with a small urbanization rate is an advantage for Russia to adopt a new approach. Ukraine has effectively used American and British anti-tank systems against Russian forces in cities such as Kiev and Kharkov, causing heavy losses in numbers and equipment to the Russian army. I think that the new equipment aid from NATO member countries can be adapted to the new phase of the operation in eastern Ukraine. However, it is possible that the Ukrainian military will not be able to receive the equipment shipments in time to deal with the Russian forces, he said. Koskinas said that Russia will rush to promote the second phase of the military operation, before new shipments of equipment from NATO member countries are brought to Ukraine. In the second phase of the Ukraine conflict, Erickson predicts, Russia will use air, missiles and artillery on a much larger scale than in the first phase. Strong firepower will destroy Ukrainian military targets and, in my opinion, Russia will overwhelm and succeed, he said. Mr. Koskinas said that success is a relative term, given the complex nature of conflict. But like Erickson, Koskinas predicts that Russia will not hesitate to cause significant damage to Ukrainian cities. Koskinas warned the Western Alliance not to underestimate Russia's military capabilities after the first stage of the operation. According to him, it was simply because Moscow had incorrectly predicted a quick victory over Kiev. Mr. Koskinas said that Western analysts are probably miscalculating the end of President Putin's campaign when they think that the Russian leader is eager to win victory before the military salute. Celebrate Victory Day on May 9th. This is just personal conjecture. In my opinion, the new phase of the campaign will not end quickly. And if so, that's sad, because the damage will be huge, the expert said.
Beaucoup se battent depuis 2014. Moscou promet de les libérer du joug de Kiev.